What is runtime binding or late binding? To understand runtime binding or late binding, you should understand the concept of virtual function. And for it, we'll consider a class, say compute class. It has two methods. One is set data and another is get result. Set data is non-virtual function. It asks the user to enter certain values. And get result is a virtual function that adds the two values, right? Now there's another class rect which inherits the base class compute. Obviously, rect class is supposed to override the virtual function of the base class. So it redefines the get result function. It also overrides the set data, right? But it will never run. Why? Because of this runtime binding. I'll let you know how. Now we define the object of the base class, that is compute, by name of base obj, and the object of the derived class rect by derived obj. Now we define a pointer of the base class compute by name base ptr. When this base pointer is pointing to the object of the base class, that is compute, that is base obj, and you invoke set data and get result, obviously the methods of the base class, that is compute, will run. The set data will ask for the two values, and the get result of the base class, that is compute, will display the addition of the two values entered. When we make the base pointer to point at the object of the derived class, that is of the rect class, that is when the base pointer is pointing at the derived obj, and we invoke the set data method. See, now here the runtime binding comes into the play. It's a thumb rule that early binding or compile time binding takes place for the non-virtual function, and late binding or runtime binding applies for the virtual functions. So now the base pointer is pointing at the derived obj, that is to the object of the rect class. So when you invoke set data is non-virtual function, and for non-virtual function, compile time binding, that is early binding, takes place. So the set data method of the compute class, that is base class, will execute because the pointer is of the base class. It is of the compute class, right? So the set data method of the compute class will only run. That is not of the rect class. So this method will ask for the two values. But when you ask the base pointer to invoke the get result method, runtime binding applies for the virtual function. So the get result method of the derived class, that is of the rect class, will run, and it will display the multiplication, that is the area of the rectangle. So the thumb rule is that the runtime binding, that is late binding, applies for the virtual functions only.